You know what's absolutely wild? Somewhere out there, there's a 16-year-old out earning his principal, his parents, his neighbor with the engineering degree, and he's doing it all in his pajamas. There are college freshmen running six-figure AI automation agencies from their dorm rooms, selling services they learned from a $99 online course. Not to mention the 19-year-olds with LinkedIn profiles that read like they've been in business for 20 years. Generation Z, born roughly between 1997 and 2012, and they've turned side hustles into a lifestyle. Not a backup plan. Not something you do on the side. It's just how they operate. They're your younger cousin with a media company that's actually a TikTok account, the teenager with creative director in their bio because they actually sell Canva templates online, the college student who has a Calendly link in their Instagram bio like they're running a Fortune 500. And here's what nobody's really asking. Why is an entire generation acting like employees are extinct and everyone needs 7 income streams by age 20? I'm going to break down the 3 forces driving it: insecurity, identity, and algorithmic opportunity, and how that reshapes Gen Z's relationship with work, status, and money. Picture this. It's 2015. You're 12 years old, scrolling YouTube, and you watch a teenager not much older than you talk about making $10,000 a month from their bedroom. They're showing their PayPal screenshots, their Amazon stats, their passive income, and you think, wait, you don't need a job? You can just make money from your phone? Now flash forward to 2020. You're 17. The world shuts down. Your parents are working from home, or not working at all. School is on Zoom. Everything that felt stable is suddenly optional. And all those YouTubers? They're fine. Actually, they're thriving because their income wasn't tied to a building or a boss or showing up somewhere. That realization rewired an entire generation's relationship with work and money. Here's the first strange thing about Gen Z. They're entering the best job market in decades, and they're not interested. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that labor force participation for 16 to 24-year-olds has been declining, even as job openings hit record highs. Meanwhile, a 2023 Bankrate survey found that 53% of Gen Z has a side hustle. They're not lazy, they're just doing math differently. Why work 40 hours a week for $15 an hour when you could potentially make that in a day reselling vintage clothes on Depop? Why climb a corporate ladder when the ladder might not exist in 5 years? Psychologists call this perceived opportunity cost. Basically, every hour at a traditional job feels like time stolen from building something that could actually scale. And for Gen Z, who grew up watching people get rich from their phones, that feeling is intense. It's not that they don't want to work. They just think the definition of work their parents used is outdated. Let's talk about something that seems superficial but is actually deeply psychological. Gen Z treats themselves like businesses. A study from Morning Consult found that 86% of young Americans would post sponsored content for money. They're not embarrassed about it. It's just logical. They're 13 years old with media kits, 16 with brand partnerships, 18 with rate cards. And it's not narcissism exactly. It's more like they've internalized that in the creator economy. You are the product. Think about what they watched growing up. YouTubers becoming millionaires, Instagram influencers getting free stuff and paid trips, TikTokers landing Netflix deals. The message was crystal clear. Your personality, your aesthetic, your content, that's worth money. More money than most entry-level jobs, actually. So yeah, they optimize their Instagram like it's a storefront. They network at 17, they have elevator pitches for their personal brand before they can legally drink. Because in their world, that's not weird. That's survival. Here's where it gets psychologically interesting. Gen Z doesn't feel secure unless they have multiple income streams. And I'm not talking about retirement diversification, I'm talking about teenagers who panic if they only have one revenue source. Research from Deloitte's 2023 Gen Z and Millennial Survey found that 46% of Gen Z worry about their financial situation constantly. But here's the twist, many of them are making decent money. The anxiety isn't about being broke right now, it's about relying on anything. They watched millennials get destroyed by student debt and job instability. They saw their parents stressed about money during 2008 and again during COVID. They learned that betting everything on one income source, even a good job, is actually the risky move. So they diversify like hedge fund managers. Print-on-demand shop, YouTube ad revenue, freelance graphic, design, reselling sneakers, Patreon supporters. It's not greed. It's terror, disguised as entrepreneurship. Now here's something that separates Gen Z from previous generations. They're not interested in trading time for money at all. According to a 2022 study by Microsoft, 53% of Gen Z won't take a job that doesn't align with their personal values or offer flexibility. But it's deeper than that. They're specifically looking for things that can scale. They don't want to tutor one student for $30 an hour. They want to create a course that sells to 1,000 students. They don't want to mow one lawn for $50. They want to build a lawn care business they can hire people to run. Behavioral economists call this leverage-seeking behavior. Gen Z intuitively understands that your time is finite, so if your income is directly tied to your hours, you've capped your potential. Let's talk about credentials because Gen Z has a fascinating relationship with them. They'll call themselves experts. After watching YouTube tutorials for a week, CEO at 19 with 0 employees. Founder of a Shopify store they started last month. And before you roll your eyes, there's actual psychology here. A study in the Journal of Consumer Research found that Gen Z has much higher confidence in self-taught skills than previous generations. They genuinely believe that formal education and traditional credentialing are optional. Why? Because they watched people with no degrees build empires on YouTube. They saw dropouts become billionaires. They learned that in the internet economy, results matter more than resumes. So they skip the part where you're supposed to be humble and go straight to, I'm an expert, hire me. It's not all delusion. Some of them really are experts. They've put in thousands of hours learning digital skills that schools don't teach. But there's also a lot of fake it till you make it happening because they've learned that confidence sells better than competence. Here's something that confuses employers. Gen Z will turn down good jobs for reasons that seem insane. They'll reject offers because the company culture feels off or because the job wasn't aligned with their personal brand. It sounds ridiculous until you understand the psychology. Gen Z watched corporate America fail everyone. They saw layoffs, broken promises, companies that claimed to care but didn't. They learned that corporate loyalty is a scam. So they'd rather make $3,000 a month from 3 side hustles they control than $5,000 a month from a job that could disappear tomorrow. It's not about the money, it's about autonomy. They're not anti-work, they're anti-vulnerability. And in their minds, having a boss makes you vulnerable. One last thing that defines Gen Z money psychology. They believe everything is learnable in a weekend. Stock trading, there's a TikTok for that. Drop shipping, here's a YouTube playlist. Social media marketing, take this $47 course. They're the first. Generation raised entirely in the tutorial economy. So they launch businesses in industries they discovered last week. They sell services they learned from a course. They teach things they just figured out themselves. And sometimes it works because speed matters more than perfection in the internet economy. They have zero fear of starting because they've never known a world where you couldn't learn anything instantly. So what does Gen Z's side hustle psychology really tell us? They're not entitled or lazy or delusional. They're logical. Ruthlessly logical, actually. They looked at the world they inherited. Unstable jobs, broken promises, student debt, economic uncertainty, and they said, yeah, I'm not doing that. They watched people get rich from their bedrooms and thought, why would I settle for less? They're not trying to be CEOs at 19 because they're arrogant. They're doing it because the alternative, betting everything on a system that's failed everyone before, seems way riskier. Remember that 12-year-old watching YouTube in 2015? They learned that traditional paths are optional and honestly, maybe obsolete. So now they're building empires from dorm rooms and calling themselves entrepreneurs before they can rent a car. Drop a comment if you've noticed this shift or if you're living it yourself. Your side hustle isn't just about extra cash, it's about control in a world that feels increasingly out of control. And for Gen Z, that makes perfect sense.